How could I have anticipated that moment would transform my life entirely? It began as an unremarkable day, until I stepped into that room. As I caught sight of the door ajar, an unsettling sensation stirred within me in an instant. I had the option to retreat, to disregard it entirely. Yet I refrained, for in that instant of clarity, as I beheld the scene before me, I understood that nothing would ever return to its former state. Indeed, I bear the responsibility, for it was I who initiated the situation and failed to bring it to a halt. George found himself immersed in the rhythm of his workday. Silence enveloped the house, yet subtle sounds drifted down from the upper floor. Elliot found himself ensconced in the solitude of his room. Initially, it didn't seem significant to me, yet another fleeting instance of a young man adrift in the realm of his own imagination. Perhaps he would appreciate a cup of coffee. A brief exchange could be quite pleasant. Ascending the staircase, I pondered the source of the mysterious sounds that echoed around me. As I approached his room, I observed that the door was slightly ajar. I inhaled deeply, poised to call out to him, when my gaze fell upon Elliot. He sat on his bed, the laptop resting on his lap, its bright screen illuminating his face with a soft glow. His hands danced with a certain fervor, and initially I assumed he was merely captivated by something thrilling. Perhaps a thrilling action film? Yet, as I shifted my stance, altering my perspective, a wave of pallor washed over me. In that instant, clarity washed over me, revealing the true nature of Elliot's actions. The reflection on the screen seized my gaze, and a chilling wave enveloped me. This caught me by surprise. This was not something I had wished to witness. Elliot hurriedly fumbled, striving to regain his composure as he anxiously turned down the volume on his laptop. Yet the moment had passed. The moment had come and gone. As our gazes intertwined, a deep crimson hue spread across his face, the embarrassment in his eyes unmistakable. I apologize, he faltered, averting his gaze. I found myself immobilized, as if time had come to a standstill. Well, is it the door? I began, yet I found myself utterly lost in the expression of my thoughts. A peculiar warmth enveloped me, embarrassment washed over me, yet my thoughts surged like a tempest, elusive and just out of reach. I hurriedly exited the room, my heart racing within my chest. I pressed my palms against my face, striving to find a rhythm in my breath. What on earth was that? I murmured softly to myself. What had I just accomplished? What had driven me to such carelessness? However, was I the sole bearer of blame in this situation? Cease this, Darlene, I admonished myself firmly. Yet the turmoil within me, it was ignited by far more than merely what had unfolded before my eyes. Elliot had reached the age of 23. He had outgrown his childhood, yet here I stood at 47, a woman who had navigated the depths of shame throughout my journey. Never before had I found myself in such a predicament, yet the sensation of shame was all too familiar. I remained motionless in the hallway, my heart pounding fiercely. I swept my fingers through my hair, attempting to regain my composure. As Elliot stepped into the room, he fiddled with the collar of his shirt, cleared his throat, and averted his gaze. Darlene. I apologize. I believed I had shut the door, he murmured, his tone wavering yet earnest. I swiftly averted my gaze, shaking my head in denial. No. In truth, it is I who ought to extend an apology. I should have knocked before coming in, I said hurriedly, grasping for words that eluded me. Stillness. Yet this silence was unlike any other. For years we had shared the same house, yet never before had we gazed at one another in this way. It was the first instance where such a palpable tension hung between us. I ought to make my way downstairs and begin the preparations for dinner, I remarked, swiftly pivoting toward the staircase. My voice quivered, yet I endeavored to maintain my composure. Elliot remained silent, his gaze fixed on me, as though he were attempting to unravel a puzzle within his thoughts. Before the significant events unfolded between Elliot and me, be sure to subscribe to my channel, activate notifications, and stay tuned to this tale until the very end. I assure you, a wave of excitement is on the horizon. Up until that evening, silence lingered between us, unbroken and heavy. Silence reigns, devoid of messages, glances, or even the faintest exchange of pleasantries. Yet in that silence, there lingered a whisper that everything would change forever. During dinner, we occupied the same table, yet our eyes remained averted from one another. The solitary sound echoed in the air, a delicate clinking of silverware meeting the surface of our plates. It was essential for us to converse, to alleviate the strain that hung in the air. We were both aware of it. Yet, how is that possible? The night slipped away, followed by the dawn of another day, and then yet another arrived. All appeared to be as it should, yet beneath the surface, nothing was as it seemed. The quiet between us only served to amplify the unseen tension that lingered in the air. On a seemingly ordinary afternoon, Elliot took a seat beside me. His eyes betrayed a flicker of uncertainty, yet it was evident that he yearned to mend what was broken. Darlene, regarding the other day, I feel quite embarrassed. I apologize. I never wished for circumstances to unfold like this. Please, I don't want this to ruin things between us, he said, his voice trembling yet earnest. With a deep inhalation, I gathered my thoughts. Regardless of how peculiar and unforeseen this situation was, I had to find a way to soothe his nerves. I smiled, gave a slight shrug, and replied, "Oh, Elliot, trust me. I've experienced my fair share of embarrassing moments throughout the years." Subsequently, I recounted several of those moments to him. His smile softened and he nodded, the flush of embarrassment gradually dissipating. In that instant, it felt as though the weight of the tension between us had dissipated. Yet, beneath the surface, I was aware. Nothing had genuinely transpired. Despite the apparent improvements in our situation, this conversation had utterly dismantled the barriers that once defined our relationship. And I could sense it. The situation was on the brink of escalating to unprecedented heights. Elliot emitted a soft chuckle, his eyes drifting down to the table. "I suppose we're even now," he murmured softly. I cast a subtle frown and shifted my gaze toward him. "Could you clarify what you mean?" I inquired, a hint of curiosity lacing my tone. For a fleeting moment, his expression changed, as if he had just come to the unsettling realization that he had uttered words he could never retract. He massaged the nape of his neck, pausing for a brief moment. Yet he had already begun. And now he found himself compelled to press on. He inhaled deeply, casting his gaze aside as he murmured, "I've seen you." In the same manner. You were simply unaware of it. A surge of electricity coursed through my body. Time seemed to stand still as I found myself momentarily paralyzed. "What is this?" I murmured, feeling the heavy burden of his words settle upon me. Elliot's cheeks burned with color, yet he pressed on undeterred. I kept it to myself, due to my overwhelming sense of embarrassment. Yet it lingered in my memory, never truly fading away. In truth, it was a secret I held close to my heart. A thought that lingered stubbornly in my mind. My heart raced with fervor. An unusual warmth enveloped me. A strange feeling washed over me, signaling that something was different. Elliot's words transcended mere confession. They broke down every final barrier that separated us. My gaze fell upon him. His gaze was fixed upon me as well. At this point, it was clear to us that this was no mere exchange of words. The atmosphere in the room grew dense, and a palpable change enveloped everything. From that moment forward, everything transformed. A chasm had always existed between us in the past. The unseen divide that separated us. Yet now it seemed as though that boundary had utterly dissolved. Unbeknownst to me, I found myself dedicating an increasing amount of time to Elliot. Little instances. Conversations that appeared to hold little significance. Yet, in truth, each instance merely intensified the friction that existed between us. We found ourselves sitting together, immersed in the world of movies. In the past, we maintained a certain distance, yet now, an invisible force drew us together. A shared sensation, lingering in silence, unspoken between us. At times, as Elliot rested his arm on the couch, and my hand lightly grazed his leg, or when our laughter mingled in the air, an unfamiliar sensation stirred within me. Yet I made an effort to push it from my mind. On a restless night, slumber eluded me. I found myself restless, unable to find solace in the embrace of my sheets. Yet the turmoil within me refused to grant me peace. Only a singular thought occupied my mind. Elliot, this was not sustainable. I found it necessary to establish a boundary. If he harbored any feelings for me, it was imperative that I express it directly and bring it to an end. With that thought in mind, I rose from my slumber. My heart raced wildly. Yet my feet had already led me to Elliot's room. The door stood ajar, allowing a soft glow to spill into the dimly lit room. Upon entering, my gaze fell upon him. He lay in slumber. Yet, in that instant, my gaze was not fixed upon him. They were captivated by something entirely different. Something enormous. My breath hitched. My body became momentarily still. Witnessing him in that state unleashed a tempest within me. It was something I was never meant to witness. In hindsight, I ought to have turned around without delay. However, I did not. I lingered for a moment, grappling with the emotions swirling within me. In that moment, I swiftly withdrew. Within me stirred an undeniable force, one I struggled to contain, yet I chose to turn a blind eye to its call. I stepped back into my room, reclined upon the bed, yet everything felt irrevocably altered. That night, I remained blissfully unaware of the intricate twists that lay ahead. Regardless of my efforts, I found myself unable to resist the deepening bond with Elliot. As the days unfolded, the lines between reality and illusion faded further into obscurity. The attraction between us deepened with each passing moment. I was oblivious to how far things had truly progressed. Yet, one undeniable truth loomed before me: retreating was swiftly becoming an unthinkable option. And then Elliot returned home in that manner. He was inebriated. The sound emanating from the door, the objects he sent tumbling. The noises had the potential to rouse George from his slumber. Yet, I understood the struggle George faced each morning to rise from his slumber. I swiftly exited my room and made my way to Elliot. Before I knew it, I found myself standing right next to him, with barely a moment to adjust my clothes. Elliot's gaze drifted, a hint of distraction clouding his vision. A subtle smile danced upon his lips. "Darlene, do you truly exist?" he muttered softly. His words, though slurred by the alcohol, carried an undeniable sincerity. I inhaled deeply and seized his arm. "Elliot, let's go. It is not appropriate to ascend the stairs in this manner. Silence is essential." Yet, Elliot's gaze was firmly fixed upon my face. He offered a gentle smile. His eyes wandered slowly across my form. "Your beauty is truly remarkable. Have you always possessed this quality? Or was it that I simply overlooked it?" I paused for a moment, yet I swiftly regained my composure. "Elliot, that will suffice. Step into the kitchen. I shall prepare a cup of coffee for you." I guided him gently toward the kitchen. I endeavored to bring him back to a clearer state of mind. Yet, under the weight of Elliot's gaze and the words he spoke, a part of me began to unravel as well. Elliot settled into the chair as I busied myself with the coffee preparation. In an unexpected moment, the cup slipped from his grasp, cascading its contents across the counter. "Ah, Elliot, it is essential to exercise greater caution," I murmured, hastily attempting to tidy the chaos. Yet Elliot merely offered a gentle smile. "Have you always possessed this sweetness?" I swiftly tidied the kitchen. We could no longer linger in this place. George lay in slumber upstairs, yet with Elliot in such a condition, he dared not create any further disturbance. "Very well. We are ascending to the upper level. However, please remain silent," I cautioned, wrapping my arm around his and steering him toward the stairs. Upon entering his room, it became evident that his movements had grown increasingly unsteady. He found himself in need of a change of attire. Yet he was far too disoriented to manage it alone. Initially, I felt the urge to retreat. Yet, as I observed him grappling with the task of removing his shirt, I felt a natural urge to lend a hand. As my fingers grazed the buttons of his shirt, Elliot's breath became a gentle whisper. In that instant, the atmosphere crackled with unspoken tension between us. The stillness amplified the intensity. I was acutely aware of my actions, yet paradoxically, I felt utterly lost. Elliot's gaze held a new intensity as it met mine. In that instant, everything changed. A moment forever etched in time, irretrievable and poignant. Elliot paused, caught in a moment of uncertainty as he changed his clothes. He allowed his hands to drop to his sides, fixing his gaze upon me. It was at that moment that I became aware of the rapid pace of my breath. The silence enveloped the room, the air thick and oppressive, rendering each breath a laborious task. "I refuse to engage in this game any longer, Darlene." He spoke, his voice gentle initially, yet brimming with conviction. I fixed my gaze upon him, unblinking. My heart raced with fervor. What message was Elliot attempting to convey? "Are you indeed?" he added, his voice taking on a deeper resonance. "We exchanged glances just that once, and now it's over? Do you truly not contemplate it at all? It lingers in your thoughts as you drift into slumber." A chill coursed through my body, prompting me to take a hesitant step backward. Yet my feet seemed to be anchored to the ground. "Elliot, we find ourselves at a crossroads. This feels all wrong," I murmured, though my voice quivered with uncertainty. Elliot's smile was subtle, yet it carried an air of something far from innocence. "We crossed the threshold of determining what is right long ago, Darlene. Cease the self-deception." He stepped forward, breaking the stillness of the moment. And yet another. He was so near now that I could sense his breath brushing against my skin. His hand ascended, fingertips brushing softly against my cheek. I found myself unable to avert my gaze, despite the urge to do so. For beneath the surface, I understood he was indeed correct. In that moment, Elliot's lips brushed against mine. The stillness envelopes, thick with unspoken words and palpable strain. In that fleeting instant lay the solution to all things. The cacophony of thoughts swirling in my mind abruptly fell silent, every doubt dissolving into mere whispers. Because I had not stood my ground against Elliot, in all honesty, the desire had never been there. My hands quivered, yet I remained steadfast, refusing to withdraw. As I gazed into Elliot's eyes, filled with unwavering resolve, it became clear that all secrets had been laid bare. I inhaled deeply, my heart racing as I gradually let the straps of my garment slip from my shoulders. I conceded softly, "You're right, Elliot." My voice hovered just above a whisper. "It's time to put an end to this charade." With the space between us vanished, I reclined on the bed. My heart raced within the confines of my chest, yet retreating was no longer a possibility. Elliot gradually inclined his body toward mine. He gazed into my eyes for a fleeting moment, then a smile graced their lips. "Do not fear," he said, his voice imbued with warmth and comfort. "All is as it should be." I averted my gaze, a tremor coursing through my body. Though I couldn't bring myself to acknowledge it, deep down I was aware of the length of time I had been anticipating this moment. Yet, I found myself unable to restrain the words that tumbled forth from my lips. "Elliot, I feel a twinge of fear," I confessed, my breath coming in fits and starts, due to several significant factors. "Elliot, I feel a twinge of fear," I confessed, my breath coming in uneven gasps, due to several significant factors. Elliot smiled, brushing aside my words as though they pleased him. Perhaps it was due to his inebriation. Elliot leaned in close, his voice barely a whisper. "George mustn't wake up." I understood his meaning. Silence was essential. I find myself at a loss. A tremendous force surged within me, compelling me to stifle any sound that threatened to escape. Elliot gazed at me and remarked, "I know. Darlene, all is well, and you are wonderful too." What was it that he understood? It seems he discerned my thoughts and truly comprehended my essence. I found myself unable to resist, and so I shut my eyes. My hands gripped the sheets with a fierce intensity, while my body quaked and convulsed uncontrollably. I pressed my hands against my mouth, stifling any sound that might escape. Elliot was inebriated to the point of indifference, oblivious to the world around him. This was, in truth, having a significant impact on me. The thrill of the occasion intertwined with all that surrounded it, and the captivating sensation of something monumental. Elliot found himself inebriated, fatigued, and gasping for air. I exclaimed, "Elliot, you're turning red, and we must move quickly." Elliot replied, "All right." He replied, "All right," yet he continued down the same path. And increasingly, another contraction washed over me, and in that moment nothing else mattered. I had lost all sense of who I was. I shut my eyes and whispered, "Whatever you desire, Elliot. Whatever you desire." Elliot must have enjoyed it, for he surrendered himself completely. He released all his hold, and that proved to be overwhelming. The fire within me blazed uncontrollably. With a gentle motion, I placed Elliot in his bed and tucked him in snugly. After that, I secured the door to his bedroom. I yearned for a serene shower, a moment to unwind and let go of the day's burdens. Uncertainty loomed before me, shrouding the future in mystery. What had just transpired? As I stood under the cascading water, my mind wandered to the thoughts swirling within me, accompanied by a sense of nervousness and unease. And yet, as I emerged, a sense of clarity enveloped my thoughts. Strangely, I found myself enveloped in a sense of tranquility. I found it impossible to feel anger towards myself, for my body was as at ease as my mind. In quietude, I adorned myself, made my way to the bed, and surrendered to slumber as though the world had remained untouched. Yet, the reality is that this was merely a fleeting moment of exhilaration, a surge of impulsive longing. Yet, simplicity was always elusive. What about this? This was not destined to remain uncomplicated either. The journey continued beyond this point. It was impossible. Greater events unfolded, things of greater intensity. Ultimately, George was destined to uncover the entire truth. The tale has not reached its conclusion just yet. Be sure to follow and subscribe to stay updated on the unfolding events ahead. Activate notifications and share your thoughts in the comments. It allows you to maintain an edge in these narratives. Your support is invaluable. Thank you for accompanying me on this journey thus far.